April 7, 2026. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, had given Iran an ultimatum: reopen the Strait of Hormuz before time runs out, or face consequences so devastating that they would echo through history. As the deadline approached its final hours, tension gripped every corner of the globe. Then, at exactly 5:36 in the evening, a message appeared on his social media platform. It wasn't diplomatic, it wasn't cautious, it was explosive. Trump wrote that if Iran failed to comply before the deadline, an entire civilization would end, one that would never return. Those words sent shockwaves across continents. This was no longer just geopolitics, this was existential. World leaders scrambled behind closed doors, intelligence agencies went into overdrive, and citizens everywhere stared at their screens in disbelief. Was this a signal of an imminent nuclear strike? Was the world about to witness an event that would redefine humanity itself? The possibility no longer seemed distant. It felt immediate, real, terrifying. For many, that night felt like the closest humanity had come in decades to stepping into a nuclear abyss. And yet, just when everything seemed inevitable, when the countdown had nearly reached zero, something extraordinary happened. With only 90 minutes remaining before the deadline expired, a sudden announcement stunned the world. The United States and Iran had agreed to a temporary ceasefire lasting 2 weeks. Just like that, the edge of catastrophe pulled back, but only slightly. What followed, however, was anything but stability. The ceasefire did not bring peace, it merely paused the chaos. Negotiations between the two nations collapsed soon after, and the United States responded by initiating a naval blockade targeting Iranian ports. The situation escalated yet again, and uncertainty returned stronger than before. Then came another twist on April 17th. Iran unexpectedly declared that the Strait of Hormuz would be opened for all commercial vessels. Markets reacted instantly. Tensions eased slightly, and for a brief moment, hope flickered. But that hope didn't last. Within a single day, Iran reversed its position. The strait was closed again, and reports emerged of cargo ships being fired upon. The world was no longer just watching a conflict. It was witnessing a volatile, unpredictable crisis that seemed to change direction every few hours. This war, which had already stretched beyond 50 days since late February, had left a devastating trail behind it. More than 4,000 lives had been lost. Thousands more were displaced. Entire families shattered, entire communities erased. In Iran, in Lebanon, in Israel and beyond, the human cost was staggering, but numbers alone could never capture the depth of the suffering. Behind every statistic was a story: a home destroyed, a life interrupted, a future taken away. The question that haunted everyone was simple yet impossible to answer. What was all this for? The most dangerous phase of this conflict began when nuclear facilities became targets. On March 21st, Iran's Natanz nuclear site was attacked. But even more alarming was the strike near the Bushehr nuclear power plant, Iran's only functioning nuclear facility. This was not just another military target. This was a ticking disaster waiting to happen. A single miscalculation could have released radioactive material into the environment, contaminating water, destroying ecosystems, and creating a crisis that would span generations. The potential consequences were chilling, reminiscent of the horrors witnessed during the Chernobyl disaster. Experts warned that if Bushehr were compromised, the entire Gulf region could face irreversible damage: no clean water, no marine life, no normalcy for decades. Amid this escalating chaos, a pivotal moment occurred on April 3rd, one that challenged the narrative being presented by the United States. For weeks, President Trump had claimed total air dominance over Iran, insisting that the conflict was nearing its end. But that claim was shattered when Iran successfully shot down an American F-15 Strike Eagle fighter jet. 2 individuals were on board, a pilot and a weapons systems officer. The pilot was rescued within hours, but the second airman vanished behind enemy lines. What followed was a race against time. If Iran captured him first, it would have been a strategic and symbolic victory with massive implications. For over 24 hours, the stranded airman survived alone in hostile territory. Injured from ejection, he climbed to higher ground and hid within a mountain crevice, following survival protocols. He managed to send a brief radio message: 3 words, "God is good." Initially, American officials suspected it could be a trap, but analysis confirmed it was genuine. What followed was one of the most complex rescue operations in recent history. Intelligence agencies launched a deception campaign, spreading misinformation that both crew members had already been rescued. Meanwhile, elite forces moved in. Under the cover of strategic airstrikes, special units entered Iranian territory and successfully extracted the airman. Days later, Trump posted triumphantly, "We got him." But the reality was more complicated. The rescue was successful, yes, but the cost was significant. Aircraft were damaged, helicopters were hit. The myth of complete air dominance had been broken. The war was far from over. Throughout this period, Trump repeatedly issued deadlines demanding that Iran reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Each deadline passed without compliance. Frustration grew. The rhetoric intensified. Eventually, the tone shifted from diplomatic pressure to outright aggression. Statements became personal, inflammatory, and deeply controversial. At one point, Trump referred to Iranians in dehumanizing terms, sparking outrage across the international community. Human rights organizations condemned the remarks, warning that such language bordered on justifying war crimes. As the deadline on April 7th approached its final moments, embassies across the Middle East issued emergency advisories. Citizens were told to seek shelter. Governments prepared for the worst. The world stood on the brink. And then, unexpectedly, diplomacy intervened. Reports indicated that Pakistan played a crucial role in mediating the ceasefire, establishing a direct communication channel between leadership on both sides. It was a surprising development, one that reshaped the geopolitical narrative overnight, yet even that breakthrough was fragile. Within hours of the ceasefire announcement, Israel launched massive strikes in Lebanon, resulting in hundreds of casualties. Confusion spread over whether the ceasefire applied to all parties. Contradictions emerged between official statements. Trust eroded. And once again, the conflict spiraled into uncertainty. Subsequent peace talks failed. Demands clashed. The issue of nuclear activity became the central point of disagreement. The United States pushed for long-term suspension, while Iran insisted on a shorter timeline. Neither side backed down. The result: deadlock. In response, the United States expanded its blockade, attempting to restrict not just Iran but also its trade partners. China issued warnings. Global trade routes were disrupted. Oil prices fluctuated wildly. At one point, a temporary reopening of the strait caused a sharp drop in oil prices, only for them to surge again when Iran reversed its decision. Amid all this, India found itself caught in the crossfire. Indian-flagged vessels attempting to pass through the strait faced direct threats and gunfire. Ships were forced to turn back. Economic and strategic concerns mounted. Diplomatic tensions rose. Questions emerged about energy security and geopolitical positioning. Meanwhile, another controversial development shook the world. Israel passed a new law introducing capital punishment for terrorism-related offenses, but with a highly disputed application. Critics argued it targeted specific populations disproportionately, raising serious concerns about discrimination and human rights. As the ceasefire period approached its end, uncertainty loomed once again. Would a permanent agreement be reached, or would the world slide back into open conflict? And even if the United States and Iran reached a deal, one critical question remained: would Israel accept it? This is no longer just a regional conflict. It is a complex, multi-layered crisis involving global powers, shifting alliances, and unpredictable decisions. Every move carries consequences. Every statement can escalate or de-escalate the situation. The world is changing rapidly, unpredictably, and sometimes dangerously. One day brings threats of nuclear war. The next brings ceasefires, and the day after brings new escalations. In such a world, staying informed is not optional, it is essential.